Well, the Minnesota Vikings, they are preparing for their huge game against the LA Rams next Monday. And this, of course, follows the disaster of a game that was last Sunday against Detroit. And joining me now is WCCO's Anthony Bettin. He's a digital producer covering the Vikings for years now. You really look into the statistics. I want to talk about that game.
Let's do it. Let's do
it. Yeah. First, let's go with Sam Darnold. We were joking back here in the digital department that the lights were too bright at Ford Field. But yeah, what's next for Sam Darnold? What's the worry level, I guess, both for the playoffs in terms of potentially re-signing him?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a worry level there when you have a performance that poor in a stage that big. You always are going to be worried going forward, especially because the stage only gets bigger from here on out.
Right.
You're heading into the playoffs. Sam played well this season overall. He had a lot of good games, but up until this year, he had been labeled a bust. And so when you get to that, what was the biggest game of his career up to this point so far, and you throw a dud like that, you're definitely have a worry level going forward. In terms of re-signing him, I don't think the plan changes in the Vikings' eyes.
Okay.
The plan was always to have Sam as a bridge QB, and then J.J. McCarthy, who they drafted in the first round last year, is going to be the QB of the future. I think that's still the plan. Okay. If Sam goes on a historic run and brings them to the Super Bowl and hoists that trophy, then the plan changes a little bit.
Sure, yeah.
But other than that, I think they stay the course. I think if they can get Sam to come back on a discount and give J.J. maybe a little more time, they do. But otherwise, the future of this team, I still firmly believe, is J.J. McCarthy.
Okay, yeah, exactly. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Let's talk about his stats. You kind of specialize in stats too. What are some of the advanced stats saying right now about the matchup against the Rams next Monday?
Yeah, so if you look at some of the surface level stats,
yeah, we can pull them up.
You're going to see that it's going to look like the Vikings are the heavy favorite here. If you look at terms of scoring offense and scoring defense, so that's just how many points the Vikings have scored and how many they've allowed.
Okay.
The Vikings are 9th in scoring offense and 5th in scoring defense, and to be top 10 in both of those stats is really, really impressive.
Okay.
The Rams, meanwhile, are 20th in scoring offense and 17th in scoring defense. A little more middle of the road, but they were facing some injuries for a lot of the season, so those stats probably look a little worse than they are truly. But if you go into more of the advanced stats, it's definitely going to look like a little more of a close game. We talk about expected points added per play.
Okay.
That sounds like a fancy stat.
Right.
All it means is on a given play, how many points is your team expected to add to your final score?
Okay.
So a positive EPA per play is good, a negative one is bad. The Vikings are 12th on offense and 2nd on defense in EPA per play. Again, both impressive stats. The Rams, meanwhile, are 13th on offense and 25th on defense. So their offense looks a little more impressive, their defense looks a little less impressive. And then success rate, which is it's kind of like EPA per play, but it just measures how you can stay on schedule, how good your offense or defense is at staying on schedule. And in terms of that, the Vikings are again 11th on offense, 4th on defense. So again, close to top 10 in both stats. Rams are 6th on offense, which means they have no problem moving the ball.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a test for the Vikings defense, especially because they play a similar style of offense to the Detroit Lions, who we just saw carve up the Minnesota Vikings. So.
But we for the most part held our own, especially in the first half of the game. Yet last Sunday. So that gives me a little bit of hope for this next game.
Absolutely. The defense did look good for a stretch there. They got in the end.
Yeah.
But Brian Flores has been super impressive all year. That defensive unit has been super impressive all year. And they're definitely going to do some self-reflection after that Lions game. So hopefully they'll come with a better game plan.
Looking ahead to the Rams, if the Vikings do beat the Rams, what does the path to the Super Bowl really look like after that? A potential maybe rematch with the Lions?
Sure. Well, being the 5th seed, you're definitely going to be, you're most likely going to be playing at least one more road game, even if you beat the Rams. The interesting thing, though, is if the Vikings do upset the Rams on Monday, and the 2 and 3 seeds, who are the Philadelphia Eagles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, win their games, then you're headed right back to Detroit for a matchup with the Lions. Your third matchup against them this season, they're 2-0 against you. A pretty convincing 2-0 also, especially that last victory. But you have to imagine if that matchup does happen, the Vikings are going to be ready for it this time.
Yeah.
Because you can't get embarrassed 3 times in a row against the same team.
Oh my gosh, you hope not.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, so we know that in the last year, a lot of coaches have been fired from their teams. We named a couple of them this morning.
Yeah, I mean, Doug Peterson with the Jacksonville Jaguars is gone. The Patriots just fired Gerard Mayo. We just had Black Monday, which is the first Monday after the season, which is when people start getting cut. So.
Yeah, and so, you know, how will the playoff performance affect maybe a potential extension for Kevin O'Connell? Because you were saying you don't think he's not going anywhere.
No, certainly not. He's certainly not in danger of being fired. He's won 34 games in 3 years for the Vikings. That's an incredible statistic. The Wilfs, also the team owners, are usually pretty patient with coaches, and they're willing to spend money on coaches.
Yeah.
Coaches aren't limited by the salary cap. You can pay them whatever you want.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I fully expect O'Connell is probably due for a contract extension. I believe his contract is up after next year.
Okay.
And you rarely see coaches' contracts run out. They typically get an extension before that time. So I fully expect the Wilfs to back up the truck for Kevin O'Connell this offseason, and GM Kwesi Adolfo-Menso also, actually. I know there's been trade talk out there.
Right, yeah.
It's I think a play by his agent. This is based on no inside information.
Right.
But a play by his agent to up those numbers in the offseason. I don't expect Kevin O'Connell to get traded.
No, I really don't think so as well. But that's good to hear because he's a good coach.
Yes, yeah, yes. I think if the Wilfs don't give him a contract extension this offseason, I think you're going to have a lot of unhappy fans.
Yes, I think so too. Anything else, Anthony, you wanted to add?
I don't think so. I think, you know, the one thing I will tell Vikings fans is we're never supposed to be here. This was supposed to be a rebuilding year. Nobody had any expectation that we would win 14 games. So just enjoy the ride, no matter what happens. If we lose in the playoffs, at least we were there, you know?
Exactly. And even if you feel stressed out, like I definitely did on Sunday night. Oh my God, I was so stressed out.
Yeah.
But hey, we're there, and it's fun.
Yep.
It's fun.
Absolutely.
Like we said, the Vikings take on the Rams next Monday in Los Angeles. That game's at 7:15, and we're excited for it.